Hey guys, Tuff Knives here. So I'm going to go over all the steps I do to make a knife. Right now I'm going to be bringing back some Prospects because I love making this knife, and I'm going to be doing a project, getting a production version of this out. There was one, but it didn't last too long, and it was right at the end of arc form, so it didn't get its proper comeuppance, I guess you'd say. So what I do is I got my parts here that I get cut from New Jersey Steel Baron. Shout out to them. This is about it. This is all my knives start just like this. You got the placement of the holes and this cut because I don't feel like doing that cut. All these holes need to be opened and reamed, and then after that's done I need to open up the track more because the way they come, they're pretty much about here and about here. So I basically have a setup I do. And it's super simple. Like, there's no like real crazy. You have a mill, basically put the pivot right here, pop that bad boy in, line it up, and just move it back and forth, and it opens up that track so I can place the stop in. So basically get it opened up, and then I do some just minor adjustments to get it to basically straighten out. Or it doesn't need to be perfectly straight on this one, it could be down a little bit. But now I'll basically cut out the scale. And I do that on this guy. So I'll cut out the scale, then I'll trace or draw or make a blade here, and then I'll cut out the blade, and then I'll place the body screws where they need to go, and then do the show side and proceed from there. But yeah, I'll show some of the process if you guys are enjoying my videos. So I'm glad you are, because I was worried with the way everything is now with social media, if you guys would require me jumping up and down and talking about my Patreon or something, but I guess you're actually enjoying the actual process, so I appreciate that. But yeah, guys, I'll keep you posted on this one, and we'll watch it all come together. I'm excited to show you guys how I make pocket clips, because that's something that I do with all my machines, but you could probably do it with not much. The way I do it, it's a little faster because I have grinders and a whole shop set up, but with the blind screws and everything, it's pretty easy. So I'll get to that when I get to it. I'll make a more detailed version or a video on the pocket clip process, because I think it's something you guys could do at home more than making an entire knife, because there are more advanced machines, I guess you'd call them, required for making a whole knife, like heat treat oven and milling stuff and blah blah blah. So yeah, have a good one. So this step, after I cut this guy out to the basic shape, as you can see, it's a little wider than the trace, just in case I need to edit something on the way. So now I basically have the open position in proper spot, so I can draw that nice continuous line to the tip, and then I did already, but I had to adjust the depth of the stop pen track in the closed position to line up with that line right there. So we're right here, so I had to do all that. This is the original position traced here. This is the second position. When I do the drop point, it has to have enough space here for 2 screws, in order to do the body screws and the back spacer, and it can't come. So right now it's coming right to the edge, which I'm gonna make it that way, and then do tweaks at the end there, whether it's the sharpening notch or bringing this whole area up just a slight bit. Sometimes I bring this whole spine down a little bit to make this a more straight, gradual line. But yeah, right now it's looking how it should look. And I just need to cut the blade out next. And then once I cut the blade out, I'll have the amount of clearance here on the drop point, so I can put the 2 screws to mark for this is the show scale. So there you go. Hey guys, Tuff Knives here. So I'm going to give you a quick update. Sorry about the fan noise on the Prospect build along. So I skipped a few steps because they're boring, or I can't lose my concentration when I'm doing it, so I didn't set up a camera. But what I did was basically took a piece of titanium, shaped this out, like traced it, drilled a pivot, and then counterbored the pivot so I could put the pivot through and screw it down tight, and then put clamps here, drill through the body screw holes, and tap those, open up these holes on this side. So basically it's sandwiched together very tight, everything's in the proper position, so when I do the stop pin hole, I just go right in there and it's absolutely perfectly placed, no messing up that. And then next I'm going to do probably a step down here, like a little slot with a mill to open it up for a thumb disc, because I do like the thumb discs a lot on the Prospects. And I have to drill and tap right in the center of this bad boy, which is not a fun process, and may or may not show that because I don't want to be distracted when I do it. So it is what it is. But in later videos I might. This guy, I've been using this guy a lot, thanks to Work Sharp, just seeing how she performs. Cut a bunch of boxes open with it, did a bunch of light tasks with it, some food cutting, all that stuff. Everything is razor blade sharp and the action's still nice. I took the auto out because I kind of like it without the auto. Just simple, like, gravity kind of thing. And I've been a little distracted with the project I'm working on here. With yeah, that is going to be something I talk about in length at some point. Attempting to do something that it's going to be funny. It's going to be very American made. Small production run of something. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I will show more of this stuff going on, just not the boring stuff, because I don't want to turn the camera on just to drill a hole and then potentially mess it up because I'm not paying attention. But yeah, later. Hey guys, Tuff Knives here. So now I enter the more controversial part of my build. It's the reason I don't really show my process, but I don't really care. I'm gonna tell you anyway. So this is the counterbore process for my 3/16 .187 bearings. I basically use on a drill press this 3/16 Pilot counterbore carbide. This thing's about 150 bucks, well worth it. They last a really long time. And what this does is this post here that is detachable, you can take it out and replace it with different sizes. So this 3/16 Pilot here on the tip will go in and automatically center the scale and keep it centered, and drop down, and basically you can do your counterbore. That looks like this. This is a scrap piece, but this is what I do on the bearing, and then what I do for the pivot collars, same size. And the controversial thing is when you do this depth, when you do the depth for it, you use calipers or a micrometer to make sure your depths are perfect on both sides. I don't do that. I do it by eye because I've done it a million times, and it works. I know exactly just by eye and by feel how deep everything is and if everything's good. And 9 times out of 10, it's perfect when I go put it together. If it's not, like, the blade might be pushed this way a little bit, and that just means on the right side of my hand, it's too shallow. And when I just take a hair off, it centers itself. And if this was an issue, I wouldn't do it this way, but it does work. And I've gotten knives back from 3, 5, 6 years, and they're still centered. They're wearing properly and everything like that. So if it was an issue, I wouldn't do it this way. But this is how I do it. And I've had Nick Tupern over here before, and he just looked at me like I was crazy, which was the funniest thing ever. Because I just don't do it the way other knife makers do it. If there's a real big issue, I will break out the precision measuring tools. But as far as this goes, for me, it's just easier and quicker, and the result is always good when I do this counterbore. So yeah, that's how I do this, and I will show you when it's finished. Alright, so I just put the knife together. This is my pivot that I use for everything for the last like 6 years. So put it together, and I have a placeholder backspacer, just something that's the right thickness, just clamp it together. And you can see the centering is pretty dead on. As you can see, it's not closing all the way where I want it to close. That's where I make the micro adjustments. But as you can tell, I mean, there's burrs on everything here because everything's rough. But as you can tell, the centering is pretty perfect. So I'm going to basically get that stop pin in a better position now that I have the scales together, so this tip goes down more. But yeah, that is the very rough assembly. It's a little tight. Yeah, just showing you that, you know, you don't have to go crazy when it comes to precision. Some precision is just muscle memory, honestly. And I know it's a sin to say this kind of stuff, but like, I'm not trying to prove anybody wrong or say anybody's doing it the wrong way, but it's just that I do it this way and it works, and I see no reason to change it. If I did, there are some things I do that I'd like to change the way I do it, and it sometimes becomes an issue of I can't afford the proper machinery because it's, you know, thousands of dollars or some shit, or just I just can't figure out how to do it with those machines. But it works. And yeah, I just gotta adjust this guy, the height of this, because it's sticking out so far. But it's perfectly lined up here on the spine. So that just means I cut it a little too early, which is fine. I like to, you know, you can always take away, but you can't put back. So that's one of my biggest rules with knife making, and a lot of guys is just you can't put metal back on, but you can always take it away. So just, you know, little increments at a time helps. But yeah, all right. So the pocket is milled out, and I basically want to get it to be able to have this screw head below the top of the blade. So when I go to screw in the thumb disc, the counter bore for this hides the head of the screw enough when I'm screwing it in, so you don't have a screw sticking out the top of it. So it'll just be like the very tiniest bit. Sorry, this is very difficult to do with one hand here. But as you can see, I definitely have enough to say there's clearance there above the head of the screw. So yeah, that's that. I'm basically going to take this blade out, and I'm going to color this in black with a marker and then scribe a center line so I know exactly where to drill for tapping. This is not fun, guys. I'm going to say this is like, nobody taught me how to do this. This is just the way I figured out how to do it. And I'm like, okay, I should probably use a smaller screw than a 440 in there, but I like 440, and I don't have any other taps, so that's what I use. So it's going to be a 440 hole for a 440 screw, which makes zero room for mistake when I'm centering that hole to drill and tap. And yeah. So now I'm basically using this 1/16 of an inch end mill to just slowly, perfectly center, slowly drill a blind hole to tap. I'm basically going to take this and open it up to, I don't know what the hell size drill bit it is, but enough for a 440 tap. So basically I started this with a ball nose end mill, which is good for placing, but I find it harder to basically drill into steel slowly with it. So a flat-faced carbide end mill is what I'm using to get a little bit more depth. But as you can see, everything's marked. You have a mark on the side, measured where see, that I would do measuring, you know what I mean? I measured where the center point is. So it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Aesthetically, it doesn't really make much difference. It doesn't look too bad if it's a little further forward or backwards. But, you know, I'm trying to be completely centered, so it is centered. But yeah, this is my weird way of doing a thumb disc process. Alright, so I opened up that hole with the drill bit, the depth I need to. Now it's ready to be tapped, and I do not have a Tap-matic, so that is always fun. I just need a bottoming tap and a few threads in there, and then do some jimping on the back here. I'll show you how to do that, and it's ready for heat treat. So I drilled and tapped this hole here. I wasn't going to do that on camera because it's just too much of a serious step for me to really not concentrate on what I'm doing. So I started off with just a regular tap and then ended with a bottoming tap, which is a tap that's flat on the end. Or, when you break your bottoming tap, you could just form this, or you break your regular tap, you could form this into a bottoming tap because saving money. But I got a little recommendation, guys. This is the tie connector from Steve Kelly bench tapper. Basically what this does is you can take your part, whatever it is, put it in there. I'm just putting this in there for the hell of it. Whack it up against the wall there, and you get a nice straight up and down tap without any side-to-side movement. Of course, unless you broke yours at one point and then had to kind of get it back together. I basically got a tap stuck in here, so this isn't what's in here. I put that in there to save it. I got to buy a new part for this thing, but it still works really well, even being busted. But I'll probably contact him at some point to get a replacement part. But this thing is worth the money. I've gotten questions about it. It's great for tapping by hand. It takes away a lot of the wiggling and moving side to side and breaking taps. I'll usually have a tap in here for a very long time until it wears out, which when I'm doing a tap by hand, it breaks before it wears out. I'm always going to break it before it wears out, which is a pain in the ass. If you know, you know. But yeah, I would recommend this. Alright guys, so Tuff Knives here. So now we reach the relief cut for the lock step. This step is the one step that for some reason I absolutely hate doing. It's boring, it's a pain in the ass, it's not fun. I just hate it. I don't know why. I just absolutely hate this step. It's the only thing that makes me never want to make a knife again. I basically just come in with a 1/4 inch end mill. Everything's nice and clamped, everything's straight, and I basically will just bring this, put a little pocket here so this lock bar can bend. And along the way, I just give it a little nudges to see where the tension is. I do that by feel. If it's not perfect, sometimes just go in there kind of with a Dremel, just kind of shave a layer off, or I'll put it back in this clamp and take a tiny little layer off. But I start with a 4-flute 1/4 inch carbide end mill, and I'll kind of end it with a carbide burr bit to just kind of make it a nice smooth finish on there. This gives actually a surprising smooth finish on it, and basically take micro layers off with this thing. So yeah, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this one. I'm not gonna show it because I hate it. It's boring, and yeah, it's a very important step though. But for some reason, if you were to ask me which step I hate the most, it would definitely be this. Hey guys, Tuff Knives here. So next step here, I put the lock bar into a vise, and what I'm going to do is basically take the torch and just heat up the relief cut area here, and just lightly kind of put it like this, just so it keeps it straight, no bending or anything like that. Let it naturally move over to the position about here, maybe a little further. So yeah, naturally goes over there, and try to take this bad boy out as quick as possible. Dip it in some oil. Not 100% certain why that is. I've been taught to do that. Apparently, it basically rests the titanium in the position it's in and kind of resets it. That's why we use titanium. It has memory, so it will stay bent like this as its natural position. So it won't want to return to being flat again. So I'm basically going to do that, and then I'm going to shear off and flatten the lock face, which I'm not going to do on camera. It does have the water jet angle to it this way. It's not perfectly flat because the water jet, when water jet goes through titanium, it basically makes that jet of water a little bit wider and bursts out the other side. So you're going to get angles around everything pretty much, especially this cut right here. That's very easy to do. Basically just run it flat on the grinder, do some hand filing in one of these as I drop it on the ground, which is fine. But yeah, that's that step, guys, and I'll be back with more. Hey guys, Tuff Knives here. So now we're on to the most important part of the entire knife, and that would be the detent and the lock. And as with everything, I do this caveman style, so this is just the way I was taught. I've made some tweaks to the way I do it over the years, but for the most part, it's the same thing. It's pretty simple. It's just there's a lot of room for error if you mess up anything, but I've gotten it down to a science. I basically take this the tang here, and I'll just use like a Sharpie or something colored in black, so I could scribe a line. And also I outline the scale in the open position, so I know where the scale is and where I have hidden area. Because when I put the detent in, I'll move it around here before I actually drill for the detent, so I could see if where I mark, say like I marked right here, if that dot crosses over this line, then you get the track showing. So the whole point of this is to make sure the track's not showing, and that basically has me locating this inner edge here. When I have it together, shine a flashlight. Basically put everything together completely with screws and everything. Basically I could see through this, maybe if you can focus, see this line here, I could see where that ends, where the actual tang is in the open position. This isn't precise, I'm just showing you guys. And I'll basically put the detent at the furthest edge to this as possible and mark it there. Then I'll put everything together, close her up, make sure everything's clearing, make sure the backspacer's not smacking the blade or anything like that. And in this closed position, some people clamp it. You basically want there to be tension on the lock bar, pressing on the blade. Everything's, how it would be. And as you keep pressure, I basically will drill through with a 1/16 carbide jobber bit. This is a broken one. They're basically these little guys. Pretty expensive, and they break very easily, so you gotta be very careful. So this is the 1/16, is a 55, and then the slightly bigger, which I'll open the hole up to later, is 54. I mean, that's just what I've always known them as. And in some cases a 53 if it gets any issues. So yeah, that's the goal. Drill this guy through here into the heat-treated blade. You don't get too far in there. And that's about it. And then once that drill bit goes all the way through and you have your detent spotted and everything, I will take a razor blade in the open position, go through the lock bar here, and just scribe into that black Sharpie exactly where that lock needs to be cut. And it's pretty damn precise actually doing it this method, as long as your knife is all together and opened and locking in the right position. Well, it won't be locking yet, but it's open in the correct position, so you want to make sure you keep pressure so it's open all the way. And that scribe line will be where I'm working towards. I'll basically cut off a lot of this, just power through it. And when I get close to whatever the line is I scribed, I'll be basically taking very, very little bits off and then bring it back over here, testing if it locks up, taking it apart, taking the tiniest bit off after marking it again with a Sharpie to make sure when I do take a tiny bit off, it actually comes off. So that Sharpie will disappear, knowing that I took off the tiniest little sliver. Back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes it takes me like 5 or 6 tries, sometimes 1 try. Sometimes 20, who knows, but I just super precise. I will take time out to make sure I just cut the littlest bit off that lock. I may or may not show that part of it, and I'm not going to show the detent part because it's just too risky for me. I'm just kind of making content for this. I'm not trying to mess up the knife as I'm building it. So yeah, enjoy. Alright, it's a quick video here on how to cut a lock. There are parts you can buy for grinders that literally are set to a lock side and just set it and forget it. Basically guide you through the whole process like a jig. I do it this way. I've done it this way for a long time. I basically have my line scribe and basically power through it with a 80 or 100 grit, 120 grit. Basically get closer to the line, and then I just move to a 180 or a 220 grit, and I slow this bad boy down a lot. But right now I have it set to an angle. I mean, some guys do 9, 9.5, 8. It just depends on how your knife works. For me, it's between 9 and 8.5. It's an angle. If something seems off when I'm doing the micro adjustments, I will adjust this as well. But for me, it's by feel, and I know where my lockup's going to be. So that's how I do that. I basically just set an angle on my grinder. This is perfectly flat, so the angle is all the tool arm here, or this is the tool arm, the platinum. But yeah, that's where I go with that. Alright guys, so the lock is cut, and I did this part as well. I didn't film any of this. What I did with this basically is I basically just took a scrap piece of tie that is not too thick, is a little over the top here, so I can still shape it a little bit. But you see the counter bore, that screw is nicely seated in there, but it probably might counterbore a little deeper at some point. But there's no light shining through here or anything like that. So it's rough right now, but that's it. But after I cut the locks, one thing about that is when the lock is cut, you know, when one of my fittings, I'll put it together and I can get a nice detent track in there. So you can see where that is, and then I basically line that up with this edge here, and I curve it over nicely on the belt, and maybe even buff it up, polish it up a little bit, so there's a nice smooth roll onto the blade. Because if it's not there, it'll drop off and then hang on here and then slide and open. With this, it slides nicely and clicks off. It flicks it a little bit, gives a little bit of drop off, so it actually assists the tiniest bit. Just tweak this a lot, and yeah, so it should lock up good. Let's find out. Let's put this guy together. Hopefully I could do this on camera. It'll not take an hour. Let's see. This guy here. Just a little stripped. So what happens when you use the same screws for projects over and over and over. Eventually they strip sometimes. I don't know why, but I always do the pivot screw then the body screws whenever I'm using my knives, or I'm making my knives, and even when I'm doing maintenance on my knives. For some reason, I don't know, sometimes there can be centering issues if you do it wrong. I don't understand at all, but it's not like every time. But tighten this guy all the way, back it off just the tiniest bit. As you can see, we're still centered nicely. Let's give it a little flip, and we got a nice early lockup. Alright, hand test's good. Smack, a couple smacks, it's, that's the thing with that. This lock I like to get nice and early, real early, so it's still locking up. But after I'm done grinding the blade completely, then I will go back and tweak this a little bit, because the weight difference of a ground blade compared to this chunker is a lot different. Like, you're gonna get a lot more force with this big piece of steel than you are with a nice ground blade. Detent's a little on the weak side. I haven't opened up the pocket in the blade yet, but thumb stud's in the right position. There's no stick here at all, so that's good. So that means I have the proper angle here for the lockup. And yeah, that's where we are now. Basically a functioning chunk of steel knife, and I'm slowly getting away from this front flipper here. It's good to have front flipper when I don't have this made, so I can still just flip it open rather than right here. But yeah, so it's good. We're at a good spot, and this knife is taking way longer due to these videos. So if anybody's interested in this knife along the way, it's not sold. Building this thing, and if anybody has a, before I make too many videos about this, you got a request for, wanting the knife for one, and then finishes, whether you're on a pivot with Damascus or some kind of G10 or some kind of color, I don't know. Then I got to do the clip too. So yeah, let me know if you want it. And also, a step I missed is I do heat up the lock face after I cut it down to flat. Same as I do with here, just heat it up to red hot, then dip it. So it's a little harder. So if I don't carbonize it, it has more chance to wear better over time. And I haven't noticed any problems with titanium really wearing poorly if everything's together correctly. So yeah, later. Alright guys, so this is basically doing the swedge on a knife. I basically mark a centering scribe line, and basically just set an angle on my tool rest, and this is a really nice tool rest that comes with this guy. So basically you get a nice coverage here. Start an 80 grit, 120, 180, 220, up to like 400. Yeah, basically get to a point where if I want to hand rub it, I can hand rub it. So with this one, I gotta make sure not to get too deep, because I don't want to lose any of this on either side of the screw. I don't want to lose any of that wall. So it's going to be more of a shallow that goes to deep swedge here, and then this whole front area from here down will be overtaken by the main grind, which will set this line more straight to the tip. Yeah, but there's not much to say here. That's just going to be doing the swedge. Just press it flat against here, less pressure here, more pressure here. As I move across, swap it around, same thing. And you look down the middle here with your eyes and see if it's equal on both sides, or you can get out a bunch of tools and, you know, do it that way. But, you know, when I see it, I can see it. And, you know, if it's off center, when I put it in the handle, I'll know. But, like, again, muscle memory, I can tell where it's centered, and that's just the way I do it. So, yep. Alright guys, so after I did the swedge, I basically take this same setup. There's a slight angle on the flat platen, and the tool rest has an angle. Then I change the angle to a more drastic angle. So on the scales, what I do is I basically cut down these edges to a more drastic bevel, maybe even more than what's on here already. So there's an angle here, and then basically like a 1/16 of an inch flat here. And what that does is it gives you a really shallow bevel here around the back. Kind of keep the bottom the way it is for now, around the sides, and especially right here. And what that does is it makes the profile slim down a little bit without actually slimming it down. So it gives a more thin look to the blade or the handle, which I like. So light hits it, and it's darker on those bevels when I do them. So you focus more on the center shape. Which creates like the illusion of a thinner handle without losing that nice grip you got on it. So I'll do that, and then cut in the you know, a choil right here. After I do basically right here down, I'll do that same angle here, and then I'll freehand this choil here to give it a nice comfortable place for your finger to rest. And then I'll cut down a little here so you can access this lock bar. So this will basically, you know, be more like this, so you can actually get to that lock bar easier. Not so much you can really notice, but sometimes I'll do a cut in and a cut up so you can actually notice as a design element. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do here, and I'm going to do that off camera. And yeah, you're just going to keep it symmetrical all the way down, so the same amount of flat area on both sides. And I do that again by eye, but that gives a really nice look to it, and it almost looks finished in that way sometimes, if you were just blast it. And yeah, so that's my next move here. Alright, so I did one just to show you guys. So you can see right here, I actually anodized the backspacer so I could see better the space between the two sides. So you can see I try to keep it even, flat there. I might go deeper, make it a little bit thinner. And as you can see, this is, you know, that profile. And you see how that darkens this area and gives it a slimmer look. So it almost cuts out from this cut down. My goal is kind of get to this cut down, to that line to be straight with that cut down there. But it slims down the whole look of the knife. And then after I do this and go down the grits to go to a higher grit to make it smoothed out and everything, so it's nice and smooth, then I do whatever else. So I might even do another bevel that starts on here and just has a deeper cut in, depending on what I'm doing with this one. I still haven't decided. That's kind of what I do with these. I kind of decide along the way, unless I have like a plan or something. But so you can see, I'm going to do the same thing to the other side to match them up, and then change grits. So here we are, after I did the bevels. Basically what I did was go up on the grinder sideways just to smooth out all the grind lines that are going this way. So I basically turn this with a heavy grit Scotch-Brite belt. I don't know where it is right now. It's a lot of belts. Yeah, this guy. Real heavy grit, takes out all the scratches, then a lighter grit, and that's where we are right now. So you can see those are nice and shiny. Backspacer as well. Flatten off the scales, put the choils in here just roughly, and you can see we are together with a perfectly centered blade. The action is ridiculously smooth. Lockup is a little early but strong. Like I said, I'm going to adjust that after the grind swedge is done here, but as you can see, it's super smooth. It's falling shut. Perfectly centered. Got a chunker here. Opens nicely. It's good positioning. But yeah, this is where I am right now. I'm going to probably do the grind next and the pocket clip as well. And I want to do a step-by-step in detail on the pocket clip, so I may just make that its own series after this one, so I don't have to spend so much time, because there's a lot of time in these videos with making this. I would have been done this week, probably last week. So I'm going to probably skip the pocket clip assembly and make its own little series, because I think it's an interesting thing to be able to do, because you could use the knowledge on how to make a pocket clip on your own production knives for customization. So I might just do that. But yeah, there we are right now. Do a sharpening notch there, all that stuff. So this one's coming along nicely, looking good. Alright guys, so now I'm on to prepping for the grind, and with that I will mark where the top of the scales are, so I know how far I want my grind to go back, and then I will draw a line with just a marker, just at, sometimes I go this angle exactly with it, sometimes I go a little bit further out, as long as it looks aesthetically pleasing, and then I will kind of draw roughly where I want to put the sharpening notch. And as long as everything clears this detent track and nothing cuts into the area where it locks, you're good to go. So after I do that, I will take my little clamp. It's got carbide plates on it. You can get these on Amazon. This one's cheaper. I don't really like this one as much. It does work. It's too big and bulky. So there's kind of some bend here when I clamp it, which is a little weird. But usually they have carbide plates on them. So this one's been used for years and years and years and years. I have two of these, and you can see that the carbide is still relatively flat. It's flat enough to get that perfect plunge line. So basically the whole point of this thing is basically you clamp it at that line. I'm not being precise right now. Screw it in there, sandwich it together nicely, and you got something to hold on to for one. Something you can lay flat against the tool rest. I kind of just relatively flat, and I'll say this is the belt. I basically can come in and swipe along, swap sides, swipe along. What you're going to get is, if you press up against the carbide, you're going to get a nice even plunge on both sides, so you're not going to have some weird off grind. That's how I do it. I flat grind, and with a flat grind, it's a straight line and over. I try to get a little bit of a curve around here to go up, just to make it a little bit more pleasing to the eye. But it is what it is. With a hollow grind, you can do a lot more of a round, more nice looking grind. But I don't hollow grind, unfortunately. One day I'll figure it out. I've done a couple successful hollow grinds in my life, but I'm not comfortable with it still. I'm not comfortable with the jig so much, because the jig is basically you have to screw it onto the jig and do one side, then unscrew it and flip it around. I like to flip it around on the fly and just do one pass, one pass, one pass, one pass. That's just what I'm comfortable with. But so this is my method of doing it. It's great for fixed blades. I don't know the name of this one. I got this at Blade Show or New York Knife Show. I got two of them. Some guy, I don't know. There's no labels on or anything. But if I ever figure that out, I'll put in the description. But I like these clamps. They work great, and they allow you to basically smack right up against whatever and never have a problem because of the carbide plates. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I may or may not show the whole grinding process, because I don't want to lose concentration. It's one of the more stressful parts for me, because I don't want to mess it up. So yeah, I hope this helped. But this is part 14, I think, maybe? I don't know. I'm going to try to do this top of my head, okay? So I'm not going to grind the blade, but I'm going to show you how I grind. Because whenever I've taught anybody, I've taught a few people, my best advice for grinding is you have to do it. Because the feel is, I would say 90% of it. Like the feel of cutting in and pulling over, you could feel everything going through here, you know what I mean? Like it transfers your fingers. You kind of can understand through just feel. Grinding, you can give basic instructions. You might want to cut in and then kind of flatten out, pull over. When you want to get a swoop up, you pull away towards the tip, or you can do it all flat and then start doing this tip here and then blend them together. You know, because when you go like this, it's going to be a line straight across, and it's not going to enter this upward curve. So what you're going to get is thicker, thicker, and then even thicker up here. So you might be super thin here, it'll be super thick there. So that's why when you're going here, you want to pull up, and it brings the grind up a little bit. But it's hard to kind of explain. It's easier to actually feel what it feels like. And then with the tool, the flat platinum here, this angle here, the edges, it's basically like it cuts in. So you can really cut in there, so you have to be very careful. So if you're not flat, you're gonna be, if you go like move around or anything like that, you're gonna get waves in your blade. So you gotta stay perfectly flat. Same with the hollow grind on the wheel. You cut in at this angle, you know. So if you want to, dig in there, some guys I've seen them dig in, then they push over. It's hard to explain, really. It's kind of a thing you have to do yourself, and then you basically work. I go from 50 grit to 80 grit to 120 to 180 to 220. And then I do a variety of gator belts and Scotch-Brite, depending on where my grind's looking. Because of the flat grind, it's a lot harder to get a nice grind than a hollow. A hollow locks in more, so the hollow grind will lock in with that radius. It'll really lock in there, so you get a really nice even finish. Whereas a flat grind, there's more movement. So if your pass isn't perfect, you're going to get weird lines going on there. So I get a little bit paranoid about my flat grinds having a satin finish, just a regular raw grind. Because if everything's not perfect, if you got OCD like me, you're going to get a little bit weird about it. And then just go over it with a hand rub or a sandblast, stone wash. But sometimes when everything works out, it works out. Like if you get a piece of the tempered glass over the platinum here, you glue it on there, fantastic. I lost my source for that. I have not looked into getting more, because this tool rest is metal, and it can get waves in it and little notches in it, and that transfers over to the grind. So you'll see weird inconsistencies while you're actually doing your flat grind that transfer from the notches and scrapes. So I constantly am flattening this guy and smoothing it out. But when you have that tempered glass on there, if you do it correctly, it lasts a pretty long time, but they do break after a while. But you buy like 4 or 5 of them at a time, and you have them for like the year. But they really kind of helps, and I actually need to get one now that I think about it. But yeah, so that's basically how I do it. I have an angle here similar to my lock cut angle. It's about, I don't know what the hell it is. It's about 5 degrees. I don't know. But for me, that works. And at some point, I will take the tool rest away and just freehand it and just do nice passes with the higher grits, because I know how to. I can lock in. But yeah, that's how I do my flat grinds. It's basically freehand for the most part. And then constantly dipping in the disgusting drinking water here. But, after most passes, you'll dip. Some guys have the little squirt guy here, which one day I'll get that, I don't know. But you got to keep the blade cool. You can't keep it on there too long. Can't keep it going too fast. At the lower grits, I will have it going pretty fast. But the higher the grits get, the hotter the blade gets quicker. So you get a 400 grit on here and you're going full speed, you're going to burn that right away, and you're going to lose your temper and you're going to mess everything up. So, excuse me, I have hiccups here. But yeah, that's my grinding process. Alright, I'm going to make this video, not going to grind on camera, but I'm going to show you where I am here. So I first did the 50 grit, now I'm moving on to 80. As you can see, this side there is the even plunge here. You basically want to stare at this plunge here, make sure it's even on both sides, and then you know where to put more pressure on this side or this side. You can see there's an angle going up and then swooping. This one is more flat and then swooping. So what I'm doing is I'm putting more pressure when I'm pushing here and then swooping, whereas this side is there's less pressure and I'm swooping. There's no better way to put it than swooping here. So that is what I'm talking about with feel, because when I do on this side, I tend to grind softer here and then harder here. And on this side, I tend to grind harder here, then I work my way softer here. So I have to adjust as I'm doing it. So pushing in more in an upward kind of way, making sure there's like a gap between the belt and the flat here, this flat area. So you can see the slight gap. That means that I'm pushing this line up further. If you do it too much, you're going to go end up all the way at the top. You want to have this nice flat area. I like to keep that nice flat area there. But to keep it even on both sides takes a lot of practice. So yeah, just kind of pointing that out real quick. You see the difference. It's almost a straight angle up. And this one's more up and then flat and then up. It's, there's less of an angle here and more of an angle here. More of a slicer grind here, more of a regular grind here. So I kind of want to even this one out to look more like this one. Because when I get to the higher grits, my pressure changes, things change. I become more, like, I'm more comfortable here on this side when I'm first starting to grind. And as it goes on, I become more comfortable on this. It's really weird. It's hard to explain. It's just everybody has their own way of grinding. And that's what I mean about feel. You start to feel that you're, during certain parts of the grind, you change your pressures so much that your strong hand might become your weak hand. It's hard to explain. That's what I'm trying to explain, is how hard it is to explain without actually doing it. You can have someone lay out how to grind, but it's just once you feel it, that's when you really start to learn. Hey guys, Tuff Knives here. So I'm going to show you how I hand rub. And first off, when you're hand rubbing, you want some kind of a platform that gives you clearance for your hands to move around and to be able to actually rub without smashing your knuckles on something. For me, you know, some guys use something that will come all the way out and cover the whole blade. I don't. I use something that just clamps on right here and gives me a free range around it so I don't hit my knuckles or anything, and it doesn't bend or wiggle or anything like that. So a very solid platform that you can do the hand rub on. And I start off with a metal tool of some sort. It's very solid. I do the lower grits with the metal, and so I can really dig into those plunge lines, which is where your scratches are mainly going to be hard to get. Like I said in a previous video, here, around here, and around here is where you'll get a lot of your scratches. And then as I move up grits, I move on to these tools I made. With the hollow grinds, they're rounded, and you can buy them. They're nice and everything like that. I've never used those before, but I do a flat grind, so I need a flat tool. And what I use is a piece of G10 with horse mat that's epoxied onto it. And these are two different ones. This one's a lot newer, and you can see that horse mat has worn down over the years. And when I get any type of dip or groove in this, I'll take it to my grinder and surface it off so it's flat again, and that's why the horse mat has gone so deep. But this probably has a few years left in it. This is probably 15 years old. I'm not gonna lie. And this was just a little thinner, so I get more fine detail when I scoop in here. So we're back to scoops again. So I start off with 180, and I work my way up to 220 to 320 to 400. 600 and various things. So what I do is with the metal or this, I get a nice crease here. So I got a nice pointed edge there where the sandpaper is going to meet the most annoying spot in the whole knife, which is this plunge right here, because there's a little scoop in there, and that's where all those scratches and gouges are. So when I go in there, I basically bring it up to that, scoop inward and pull. Come back, scoop inward and pull. And I've done this 8 trillion times, so I know exactly where I'm landing every time. So no matter where I am, I'm landing on here just from experience. And I kind of can rub up a little bit and then pull. But yeah, that's just the way I do that. But I start by doing this guy, and then I'll hit, at another angle, I'll hit the swedge as well. Just to get that, getting the main scratches out with the heavier grit. As you go up in grits, you'll start to notice areas that are really nice and clean looking, and then areas with those gouges. And for those, when they're too deep, I have these, you can read it, whatever they're called. They are these little ceramic rods, and they come in a pack of like a ton of them with all different sizes and grits, thicknesses. And, I hit it with some kind of, Windex or something like that. And you can basically grind these to shapes that you want, like so you can take the edges off and round them and stuff like that. That's kind of what they're made for. But basically, you want to get those really hard scratches. I wouldn't recommend 600 grit. I'd probably go with 180. But for this, and you just basically can just rub those guys out, and you can feel it when you're doing it. You can feel those deep gouges, and you basically hit this and kind of keep it lower, so you're not scooping in there too much and making a weird dent. But yeah, you can use these guys. I forget what these are actually used for, but I use these on a lot of things. I use these for sanding things and all sorts of stuff. Many uses for them. So once I get to 400 grit, which is where I usually stop to get a nice finish, I can stop at 400 grit. It's a pretty decent look to it, but a lot of guys can go higher than that. It gets more difficult to hand rub when you get to the higher grits, because you got a lot more wiggle. You know what I mean? Because the higher grits are a lot smoother, so it's harder to get them nice straight lines. So the way I resolve that is after 400, I will move on to a more coarse grit Scotch-Brite pad. And I do the same exact thing. What the Scotch-Brite pad does is it gets in there the same way as everything else. You can start actually further back. I usually use a flatter pivot when I get to this point. I just pop it out and put a flat pivot in there. And I can do full swipes on the whole thing to even everything out. And also when you go down here, it gets some of these little speckles out that you had from dropping down and pulling. So this side is almost finished. I probably just made some weird wiggly lines just now, but it's almost finished. You can see there's no deep gouges anywhere. And usually after this, I will take it and lay it on the grinder and do these flats again with a high grit to just even everything out. Then I'll just hit it again with the Scotch-Brite to blend any weird separation highlights. But that's basically how to do that. Kind of hard to explain on the fly. I've done this video like 6 times, and it's been probably the most difficult video for some reason, even on like the simplest topic. It's probably just the mood I'm in right now or something. But I hope this helped somewhat. Just a simple way to hand rub. It's a lot of work. You got to go and go and go. Your wrists will get really sore. It's good to take breaks between sides. You know, I kind of do this side. I'll take like a couple minutes, or if I'm feeling pumped, I'll just keep going. But yeah, that's just how I do it. And even sometimes I will, on weird occasions, come back with a steel wool, a really fine steel wool, and just do the same thing. And that, you know, when you're having trouble blending these lines nicely, or you got some weird, it can fix it. But it's not the best thing. The Scotch-Brite works really well. But if you're real good, you've got a perfect tools and everything, just leaving it with after the sandpaper at whatever grit you end on is the way to go too. So have a good one. Alright guys, so I guess I'm going to do videos, a ton of videos on this. So right now is where I take the clamp off at 180. I did a couple passes with 180. I can keep it on there and keep going with it, but when I have any weird inconsistencies, I like to take it off and start doing freehand to fix some stuff. And that's all done with experience and pressure and feel and speeds and whatever. So right now we got a nice grind on this side. And on this side, we got some weird stuff going on. We got a weird cut up right here. It's a little lower than the other side. So what I find is when I want to fix this side to match this side, I take it out of here, and then instead of going like this, I will switch to this and have the belt go down the grind, if that makes any sense. So basically be going this way instead. And so that basically takes this side that's a little bit messed up, and I bring it over to this side so I can put the pressure that I would put on the side that's correct now on this side. It makes no sense, but it kind of does. So basically I'll do passes like this, and what it will do is mimic my pressure motion that I did with this side to kind of even it out. Because right now we're getting too thin right here, it's too thick here, and that's something I got to fix. It's hard to even explain, so I'm just kind of showing it. So maybe some of you might get that, some of you won't. This is just stuff that goes on in my head during the process, and maybe you could see what I'm trying to say without actually showing you. Alright, so I just showed you that video. Hopefully I can put these two videos together so you can see quickly. So this side was messed up. Now it's more even along with this side. So this still has a nice line this way. This one's starting to get that nice line that way. And like I said, I just reverse the grind, so I'm grinding the belt downward instead of the downward from the edge up. I'm going from the spine down. And the pressure that switching the side gives me the ability to mimic the pressure from this side's grind to this side's grind now. So it's starting to even it out. So there's weird inconsistencies in my right hand. We'll switch to the left hand. It's hard to explain, but it's just these weird, like for me, I see a up and then a scoop and then an up. Where this side I see up and then nicely straight over. So I want to have that scoop right here more straight to mimic this side. And that's only because I like the way this side looks better than this side. But if you can't fix it, right, and you're stuck here, a hand rub. It erases that little scoop, gives a nice clean finish. It looks even. Unless you're to sit there and really go through it with like some calipers or something, it's not noticeable to the eye in any way, shape, or form. It looks gorgeous and good enough to sell. But yeah, this is just more ranting. All right, so I just showed you that video. The Trizac belt, these are great for basically taking the grind lines out, kind of smoothing them out without much effort. So this is what we're left with here. It's pretty damn even on both sides. The grind is nice and even on that plunge. So the plunge will be where the relief, the sharpening notch is. So that'll go away. As you can see, it's a little thinner here than here. So I'll go back and edit that a little bit. And a little thicker up by the tip. So I'll basically just do some passes where I have more pressure in a downward way, and then kind of, that might create an extra little line here, but I'll just have to blend that together as I go. But as of now, she's looking good, and from here on, it's basically finishing belts to basically make these lines more even and as small as possible. Make sure there's no real deep gouges in here in the beginning. There's usually gouges right here from the 50 grit. There may be some up at the top here, and usually a lot down here and towards the tip, because on that swoop you don't have as much pressure when you're swooping up, except when you do it in the very beginning with the 50 grit, then you're really scraping in there, so you kind of miss those. And when you start to hand rub, you start to see those a lot. So that is your satin ground minus touch-ups. Alright, so pivot collars, guys. Now, pivot collars are equal parts fun and equal parts a pain in the ass. They make the knife look a lot better, I think. It adds a lot to the pivot. For me, it's standard on all my customs. 99% of the time I put pivot collars on there. So what you want to do is get, something thin, titanium, or zirconium, or Damascus, or whatever you're using. This is titanium, about 1/8 inch. And what you want to do is drill a 3/16 hole. So you got your 3/16 hole. Doesn't have to be perfect or nothing like that. I usually will go in there and use the carbide reamer to make that 3/16 hole a lot nicer. Usually I actually go with something smaller than 3/16, then hit it with the 3/16 reamer. That just gives you a better, more precise, because some of these drill bits can wiggle a little bit, but if you use an undersized one, then this guy, it's nice and solid. It's a nice perfect true 3/16 hole, and you want to get these burrs off the bottoms and tops of it. And I do that by basically, in a little handheld drill, I'll just pop this in there and just go psh, or psh, and I just put this guy in here. I can do it in there that way as well, just to cut off these burrs here. Alright, so I tried to do that on camera and I couldn't. I kept messing everything up. So what I did was, after I ream the hole and everything, and I take off the burrs, I basically go through with the same carbide counterbore that I used for the bearing pockets, and do it really shallow, just marking where that is. So I just basically do a shallow pass on here, and so I know where it is. It's down a little bit, so I can actually cut this piece out and then start shaping it to the size of a circle as close as I can, just freehand on the tool rest. There's a next step after that, but after that larger diameter circle, I go with the smaller diameter circle, this seat into. So you can see there's a step down there, and I don't know how thin I usually get that at the bottom here, but I try to make it like a very thin washer almost, so I don't add too much to the pivot, so the pivot doesn't lose any of its length. So when I'm actually making the knife, my pivot that I'm using during the build will be slightly longer, and I'll use a washer to prop it up a little bit so I can actually screw it together. And that washer is basically the placeholder for the pivot collars. So I'll do 2 of these, cut them out, and shape them. Hey guys, Tuff Knives here. So the day has come. I need to send out the Prospect tomorrow, so The build isn't completely finished, but it is, I'll be posting up the last couple videos this week. And I figured I'd show it before I send it out, just so I have it. So what I did was I went from the satin and I blasted the scales, and he just wanted plain. So I did the stone wash here, sandblast, and a whole bunch of interesting kind of stuff here to make it look a little bit more special. I did on both sides. They're different on both sides, but similar. We got the thumb disc with the blue ano on the edges, polished on the flats. We got the blue pivot collars and the blue backspacer. Everything kind of just matches up nicely. Gives it a little bit of pop. The blade was hand rubbed. S35VN. Nice drop point on here. Sharpened it up on that new sharpening system I got there, which is pretty cool. So yeah, the story behind this one, besides it being the build knife here that you guys have been following for the last 3 weeks, which is probably the longest I've taken building a regular knife in my life. So this one is going to go to Urban EDC, and it is essentially a prototype for them to build a production model of the Prospect. And there was a Prospect production model with Arcform. As you see, it's a different variant. A different variation of the Prospect. As you guys follow me, you know that there's like a bunch of variations of the Prospect. Some are wider, some are thinner. So this was Arcform, rest in peace. And these kind of came out at the end to little fanfare, not a whole lot of attention. And this knife was always designed to be, kind of a banger, you know what I mean? Like something to come out that just kind of appealed to a lot of people. And it really didn't get that attention because Arcform was kind of done at the time, and this took a really long time to come out, and I'm not sure how many of these were actually made. But Arcform, they're my friends, they're great guys. They kind of were absorbed by another company, I think Flightanium or something like that. Don't quote me, I don't know that for sure. But those guys are my friends, and I was like, hey, can I take the Prospect and give a second shot at it? And they're like, hell yeah, dude, go right ahead. So these guys, they're super rare, hard to find. But this one will be going to Urban EDC. And I absolutely love those guys, and I think that they are a good candidate for the Prospect because the quality of the work that I've seen from Urban EDC has been pretty amazing. And the Prospect needs its day in the sun. And it won't be 100% just like this one. That's why I'm giving them both of these to check out so they can see like the older kind of original version / the wider, more tactical version. And there's one in between that we're going to probably come up with. And but yeah, this is the build, guys. It's all finished up. Let me know if you like this. I think it's cool. Yeah, it's been a long journey, guys. But anyway, thank you for watching, guys. Thanks for following along. I'll keep you posted on the Arcform, or not the Arcform, the Prospect knife when that's coming out. Have a good one. Thanks.